So what you're saying
Yeah.
is we can do all the marketing and all the attention gathering that we
Oh
want,
God.
but if we can't figure out how to get somebody on a sales conversation, none of our marketing efforts mean anything. It's interesting. We have a Facebook group, personal trainers and fitness instructors, and we get a good amount of people that want to join that on a literally daily basis. It's a large group, so it seems just very attractive. You jump in there. Roughly 60% of the people coming in mention how they want some type of help growing their business from a revenue perspective. And the general theme of that is always marketing and sales. People want more marketing and sales. That's the thing that they believe is going to solve their business problem. Um, is now an appropriate time to be like, hey, you're wrong? Probably, unless you're brand new and you've never done it. That is not your biggest opportunity. I mean, should we take a moment and like highlight that, but we won't actually break it down, but just like highlight it for a moment that you're wrong? Is that funny? Not good? Like,
I mean, it just makes me think of what you told me today about the Facebook response that I had, where I was like, preface versus giving them the answer. I
exactly,
think that would be
exactly.
similar to that.
And I mean, here's the thing: there is
Here's what you
like
need.
there's always a need for marketing and sales. Like it just very
Yeah.
much is a need,
Yeah.
but how much is the need is really the question at hand, right? And
Mhm.
everybody's like very polarizing of
Yeah.
it's either marketing and sales or not marketing and sales. When the reality is when you have one client, you have a really high need for marketing and sales. When you have 20 clients, you have a significantly lower need for marketing and sales. And context is like you're an individual coach doing your own thing, your own business, solopreneur, one person helping you, right? If you're trying to grow and scale to 7 and 8 figures and all those things, and clearly you have the same need for marketing and sales at 1 and 20. But I would say on average, if we're trying to grow to a 6-figure coach, you're making $8,000-$9,000 a month of income, personally speaking. At 20 clients, you're at a very different scenario, unless you're charging $1. And again, context, right? But we always move this through this problem of like, I have all this attention or I have these conversations and no one wants to get on a call with me. So in one of our prior episodes, we broke down the marketing / problem awareness continuum. And literally, like, if I can urge you to do one thing right now is take out a piece of paper or whatever you write on, or just make some notes, but do it by hand and write down those 5 stages. I'm not going to break them all down here for you today. If you don't know what they are, go find that prior episode and get that information where we actually talk a little bit about it and each stage. But write those 5 stages down. And now we're really talking around the idea of, hey, somebody is solution / product aware. So those are the 3rd and 4th stages. And you want to move them to a spot where they're most aware and have a conversation with them that now on the other side of that conversation, you should be able to sell them. And from a psychological standpoint, sales is not a bad thing. It's really not. Sales is literally your duty. It is, you have a responsibility to sell somebody something that can help them achieve the goal or move closer to the goal that they want. Right. So, Andrew, you talk a lot about the psychology of coaching and helping people create success. I think for coaches, one of the biggest issues that we have of moving a person through that marketing side into that sales conversation is the idea that, oh my God, sales is bad and I don't want to be pushy. When we talk about some of the psychological side effects of you, if you will, of that sales conversation or that feeling about sales, like how do you go about navigating that side before we actually get into some tactical execution of it?
So you're asking me how to mentally reframe that I hate sales and I don't want
Yeah,
to do
it's a
sales and
common
that whole
objection that we
conversation.
get. It's a common thing we hear.
No, I mean that's such a valuable consideration, and I'm going through a course right now which is on um, mental performance strategies for high performance, and there's a lot of crossover when we look at what we tell athletes. There's kind of like a lot of different strategies and whatnot. But one of which is you have to understand that you're in full control of how things go, right? And people will set themselves up to be right more often than they will set themselves up to be vulnerable and to learn. And it's this deep seated thing where we just want to see ourselves in the best light possible. Everyone wants to be the hero in their own story. And when we take that consideration into place, people will directly start to create a narrative around things they don't feel comfortable in that won't serve them making progress in that, such as, I don't like sales, sales is sleazy, whatever that is, which is really just a scapegoat mental paradigm or way of thinking about the idea that I don't want to have to do this. I want to be right about it. And I want it to be a moral thing. So that way I can feel vindicated or validated that I don't need to do sales. It's gross. It's icky. Ew. Right. Well, okay. Enjoy starving. That's one mental model. But we also find that for a lot of performance athletes, it's kind of like, and I was gonna broach the subject with you, Steve, earlier of like, there's this thing that's the most toxic victim mentality that no one ever picks up on. And it's this comment that people say to themselves of, I'm just insert whatever trait, attribute, adjective, characteristic. I'm just a girl right now is one that's going around, which is where women are using this as a scapegoat version of saying like they're okay to have these emotional outbursts and to act irrational and like to have these cravings or like whatever it is. It's just like, oh, I'm just a girl, teehee. Or the I'm a chill guy thing where it's like a guy's, being very promiscuous and doing whatever these things are. It's a scapegoat of like, I just am this way versus looking at it. And that's a very fixed mindset and it doesn't allow you to grow. And so when we look at the people that have a fixed mindset around things that are just like, I am this way, I can't change it. Those are the people that tend to struggle to make any exceptional performance versus the people are like, okay, well, if I'm not good enough, and that's another way of looking at it, well, I'm just not good enough. Well, I'm just is again a great way to identify if you're in a victim mindset or if you're in a growth oriented mindset, then you can start to look at and adopt the idea, well, if I'm not good enough, then how can I get better? Because there's always a follow on of like, all right, well, I'm just blank, but the so what should always come into place. So to answer your question and kind of couch this thing is that you need to be aware of what you say to yourself around the things that you don't feel great on, because it's a really great indication of how you see yourself in general and your willingness to step outside of your comfort zone and to experiment. And I would encourage you to adopt it in a fun reframe of like, how can you make it a game? How can you make it something fun? How can you gamify it? And in this case, really what you're trying to do, and one of the things that I really find helpful for a lot of coaches, especially personal trainers that, I've mentored in the past in a brick and mortar setting, is when you're having a sales consultation, you want to pretend like you're a Jedi, right? You're trying to do the thing where Obi-Wan is like waving at the stormtroopers in the very first episode that ever or the very first episode that ever came out. He's like, these are not the droids you're looking for. That's kind of what you're trying to get people to do, is like, oh, okay, I see what you're saying. I want to repeat and pair what you're saying. And a lot of that comes down to the mental kind of jujitsu that you're looking at of like getting people to identify that you are like them, getting them to feel comfortable, getting them to start to accept the things that you're going to tell them. And you're constantly almost like you're tenderizing a steak. You gotta like do some prep work a little bit. You gotta know about them. And it's really cool that Teddy Roosevelt, when he would entertain foreign dignitaries, before they would come in, he would literally spend all night. I don't know what that actually looks like, but he'd spend all night reading up on the common interests that they would have. So that way they would have something to talk about. And so how many coaches do you know that are going into a sales consultation, actually doing some research on a lot of your clients, like their social media? There's so many different things. LinkedIn, you can go and start to look at what these people have an interest in, and it'll help you have a leg up on. Now, when you think about gamification, you give yourself some points, right? Give yourself 5 points for doing the pre-work. Give yourself 5 points for setting up, an email where you're like going to confirm the appointment, and you kind of create that for yourself, and you can make yourself level up and whatever else. I remember there's more to that, but that's, again, I said I'd couch it, so that's
The,
your head's the
this,
problem.
ladies and gentlemen, is about to be a prime example of somebody who is going for their doctorate in the psychological world and just trying to navigate those human emotional things and correlate it to logic, versus my answer, which is going to be completely like polar opposite, but still very applicable, I hope. And my answer is, we can all agree that your business, your job, your career does not succeed if you can't go sell people into personal training, into health coaching, into nutrition coaching, whatever it is that you're doing. It is literally a fact that on the other side of you helping somebody achieve a goal, you must sell. So your career depends on it. Your ability to help somebody depends on it. Generally speaking, your lack of confidence in your sales skills is going to be rooted in a lack of confidence in one of a few things: your ability to get them the result that they want, the offer you're going to present them,
Mm-hmm.
or the fact that you're just so new you've never done it before. There's probably a few more reasons, but I would say those are the big three. So if you're not confident in your ability, go figure that out and get better at your abilities to prove result. If it's a byproduct of time, guess what? You just got to sit and do it in reps and get time in. If it's a byproduct of you just don't know how to solve the problem, then like there's a lot of knowledge today in a lot of places. This isn't a plug at Beyond the Pump, but like you have Google and AI. You have us. You like $60 a month and you can get a lot of development things, like $15 a week, that make you a better coach. It's not an
Yeah.
excuse anymore. If it's your offer, we have an entire
Too costly.
program built around the idea of making sure you have a really good offer. Not I see you twice a week for 15 minutes and do Loom reviews and text you and all these things, but rather here's the structure that appeals to you to ensure that you actually get the results you want. And here's how I provide results in such a way that doesn't kill my ability to still be a human and have self-care and all those things. And the last one is like, if you're not comfortable in sales because you haven't done a lot of sales, like there's really only one way to get over that and go do more sales. So again, you might suck in the beginning. Cool. Guess what? The only way to get better is do it a couple of times and go through the suck and then turn to suck and getting better. So there's my warm and
Yeah.
fuzzy, non psychological, need a tissue box, go gamify it version, and everything like that. So
Well, I think there's a lot of, and that's really important to think about. Like the
mhm.
essential nature of the work is the work. How we dress it up or how we dress it down is the same way that you got to eat fucking broccoli. You might get colon cancer. Obviously, don't freak out. That's very hyperbolic. That's very exaggerated, right? But you do have to take certain steps to be healthy, and you actually have to do that. Now, how you do it, do you want to do it in a group? Do you want to do it by yourself? Do you want to do it in a closed setting? Do you want to do it in an open setting? Do you want to do spin? Do you want to do bar? Do you want whatever that is? Like that's just dressing it up and dressing it down so you enjoy it. It's no different than anything else. Being a grown, responsible adult is how do you take the mundane and how do you make it extraordinary? And I think that's really the thing that we talk about. You can look at it as, and I hated this saying when I worked for a company that was like, do the boring work. And they're like, it's like this glorified meritocracy of, oh, it has to suffer, it has to suck, but you have to do it anyway. I'm like, fuck off. I don't want to do any of that. That sounds terrible. You're really selling me on this. And you find that like the people that have like a lot of trauma are attracted to that. And it's like a whole weird thing. And anyways, long story short is that the work is the work. Make it fun if you can. And generally speaking, you're going to want to show up more frequently, especially in the earlier stages. And if you don't know how to do that, we have different calls and stuff like that that you need to hop on, to be frank. Like it's a specific call to action. So, if there's anything else that you guys want to see, like please comment it in the comments below, because that's the stuff that we love discussing. And if you want to talk about gamification, we can definitely make that a future podcast topic. We just need to know if you want it or what you do want to hear from us. So make sure you hit that in the
Just
comments
don't
and stuff.
ask
So yeah.
Andrew for his gamification Google sheet because it's going to be about 48 tabs wide. And now that Google Sheets can like
Have
have
one yet.
actual tabs on Google Docs and everything, it's going to also be 48 tabs deep. And whatever 48 times 48, I promise you don't want to mess with that number of tabs and sheets. So,
Well, it's funny. I'll say one more thing about gamification because it's so interesting. In that when I was a personal trainer at Lifetime, I really didn't look at my paycheck. I didn't really care. I just wanted to help people level up a little bit, but it kind of got a little boring. You kind of do the same assessments. You kind of get stuck in the same routine. And so me and a couple other trainers, we started to play a game where this is super nerdy, but we pretended that our clients were Pokemon. And for those of you that have ever played Pokemon before, they have certain characteristics. Like you have a fire type, you have an electric type, you have a water type. And we kind of looked at them like personalities. And then we would sit there and say, like, hey, if you could bench press your body weight or if you could back squat your body weight, like you would level up. And so the idea was like how deep and how strong was your Pokemon roster. So for those of you that are millennials and have never played that, I don't know. That's one way that you could play around with that. But it's just an example of how you can make something that's mundane and how you can church it up and make it more fun and have something that, not only yourself is interested in, but you can also then attract people that want to have fun with their own process. So that's really what branding
Yeah, it
is
totally makes
supposed to be
sense.
about.
It's just switch the way you see it in your brain, right? Like just thinking through that. So,
Mhm.
but anyways, enough of the
Yeah.
diatribe about the
Yeah.
idea of like sales being a negative thing. Like it is not a negative thing as long as you're
Mhm.
selling something that people need and will solve their problem. Don't sell them shit and you should feel good about it. Simply put,
Mhm.
it's what you're here to do. Now, setting that aside
Mhm.
for a moment, the awareness continuum, we talk about the idea that somebody has no idea that they have a problem or whatever it is. And now all of a sudden it's like, cool, we want to get them to the idea that they want to buy something from us specifically. That flow ultimately means we need them to have some aha moments. We need them to go through a process where they themselves identify, oh, Andrew can help me solve the problem that I believe I have, and I believe he has a solution to that problem, and I believe the solution is the best solution for me. Your conversations, your marketing, your interaction in person on social media, whatever it is, are the things that start to get somebody to ultimately go through that process. Now, when we say, "Oh, Andrew shows up and he needs to lose weight," you can't just jump in and be like, "Hey, bro, you're fat, and I solve your problems." The reality is they probably like know they're fat, but that's actually a side effect of whatever the actual problem they're facing is. So I like to figure it out or think about is what is the micro problem? Like in health and wellness, we always talk about what are the macro problems and the micro problems and all those things, just because why not? It's stay consistent. But what are the micro problems that are existing for this person? We can probably assume that a generally unhealthy person, and unhealthy is meant to be vague, but it's this whole thing we talk about. You need to consume enough water. You need to get enough sleep. You need to eat enough fruits and vegetables. You need to eat a wide variety of food. You need to go work out and lift weights a minimum of 48 days per week. You need to go do cardio for 72 hours a day. Whatever your shtick is that you put out there, those things are all what I would call the macro problem. Okay. So and so needs to drink more water. There are very few people on this planet that internally truly believe they don't need to drink water. Very few. I think I've truly heard a story of like three people in my life that are like, I don't need to drink water, insert some various reason. So mostly you should drink more water appeals to everybody. That's a macro problem. They get it, they understand it, they agree with it. But the fact that they know they need to drink more water isn't the actual problem that you help people solve. It's going to be some form of here's how I make drinking enough water easy and fit into your life. Here's how I make drinking water that you say doesn't have a taste and you don't enjoy taste and feel better. You drink too much water and you say you have to pee all day. Here's how there's all of these things that people have a reason or a more micro problem as to why they don't actually do the thing they know they should do. Okay. I'm really, really overweight. Well, what is the reason that this person is overweight? And we need to start to understand that. In this industry, we always hear the idea you should niche down and you should focus on a specific population. It's not so much that you need to niche down in the sense of here's the only things you can go out and like population of people you can serve, but on the kind of reverse end of that, a specific population has a generally speaking certain set of problems that you're there to solve, right? We always see I'm here helping five busy moms. Well, what do all busy moms identify with? Generally speaking, the same thing. I'm here to help, five professional moms. What do they all deal with? I'm here to help busy professional
Mhm.
moms. Every one of them has a certain subset of information. Like, random question, do you think a really busy person that's not at home, things like that, has a harder or easier time eating a very well-rounded diet? Right? Are they, if they're super busy, can they spend a lot of time preparing food? Or are they typically buying food that's fast on the go and quick and easy? If it's fast on the go and quick and easy, we can usually assume that it's not as nutrient dense. It's usually calorically heavy. Again, this isn't a 100% of the time, but those are the micro problems that we want to solve ultimately. And those are the conversations that we want to have. So hopefully that paints the picture a little bit of, it's not about the weight loss. It's not even about the drinking more water, but rather it's the thing that's getting in the way of them drinking more water, which once they drink more water, they'll feel more satiated, which means they'll eat less, which means they'll lose weight. Right. So go solve that person's problem of put this in your water and make it taste good. You lose weight. I realize that's an oversimplification of creating the outcome, but all of you health and wellness kind of coaches, you understand that process and you now start to correlate it to those conversations. So when we go back to how do I convert this lead, this person who's having a conversation with me to say, yeah, I'm interested in listening to what you have to sell me. Do you understand the micro problem that you're solving with and for them? Because if you don't, you got to get lucky and you're shooting in the dark. That's one of the biggest things where you need to start to understand this person. I am making the assumption that you've done some content, you've had a conversation in person, you've done something to already create some awareness around what it is that you do. That person is now engaged in a slightly deeper conversation, whether it be in person across on the table or in the DMs or via email. And now it's your chance to say, hey, Andrew, what is the actual problem you're looking to solve? Right. And depending upon the conversation flow, you might directly say that, or you might go down more of a passive road where these are loosely the big problems I solve, which can be caused by a lot of these issues. What things are you dealing with? And let them tell you what they think they need to solve. Right. And Andrew Andrew's been my coach for, I don't know, 3 years or whatever at this point in time. And Andrew has never once, but also at the same exact time, every single time, told me exactly what to do. Giving up caffeine was a really good conversation. We have a conversation on a Friday. Our meetings, our one-on-ones are always on Fridays. He's like, yeah, man, you're drinking a lot of caffeine. And for context, I was over a gram a day. That's like 13 cups of coffee plus per day. Just so we're clear on how much.
I forgot about that.
And I had no idea I was drinking that much. But I'd sleep at night and whatever, totally fine. Like, I don't need to give caffeine up. I'm totally good. Weird thing is on the other side of giving caffeine up, I was like, oh, I have more testosterone. That's freaking weird. Wait, I gained lean muscle mass because I wasn't crushing my hunger and I was able to eat more protein. Awesome. Cool, great outcomes for me, right? But so we have that conversation Friday's like, yeah, we might want to think about this because here's these things that you might want down the road. And I'm like, all right. So that was Friday. The following Friday, he's like, all right, so what are we gonna do about this caffeine? I'm like, oh no, I'm already stopped. He's like, what do you mean? I'm like, yeah, no, Tuesday was my last day. I had a cup of coffee on the way to the airport and I'm done. He's like, do you have headache? Like, are you okay? Should you go, like, you need rest? He was just like, what is going, are you sure you're alive? And I'm like, yeah, no, I'm fine. Now I'm probably the oddity at over a gram of caffeine, no headaches, no any of that stuff, no coming off of that. I've heard a lot of horror stories. I think you're all suckers and you just can't handle it, but no, joking. Totally joking. But
edit that out. No kidding.
But from that perspective, Andrew never once said, Steve, you need to do this. He said, Steve, you really want increased testosterone, you want to gain lean muscle mass. A really great next step would be to reduce your caffeine. But we'll talk about it later. He's the king of like, yeah, here's this thing, but we'll talk about it later. Well, guess what happens? I go on a deep dive for a few hours and over the weekend of learning about the thing. And I'm like, all right, cool. I'm just going to do it on my own. And then show up and I'm just like, yep, I'm already good. Like, what's the next thing we should think about working? No, Steve. So he helps me always see that thing, but he intrigues me enough to step down that road of let me go learn and make my own decision. Like Andrew doesn't know better. I know better. Even though without Andrew there as a guide, I would never have thought to think about that thing. And that's what you want to be, right? So how do we understand? Like Steve's problem isn't that he thinks he has on too much caffeine. Steve wants more muscle mass. Well, If I lay those things out, Steve's probably going to do that action because he wants more muscle mass in doing that. Conversely, Steve, you should stop drinking all this caffeine because it's not great for you. Psh, I'm fine. I can drink coffee and fall asleep right after. How many people have heard that before? That would have been my
Oh
answer.
my god. Yeah. Do you remember the food tracking? I was like, yeah, we'll get into food tracking eventually. The next thing I know, he's like logged the whole week. Guys, what you should know about Steve is he's definitely an oddity. There's not often where there's a lot of different coaching strategies you can implement. And one of which is I like to call seeding or littering. You just kind of like drop something a little bit and see if people bite and see what they do with the information. Steve is the king of like, he loves the litter. He'll sit there and he'll be like, oh, look at all this stuff. And he's naturally an inquisitive person. He likes to understand things. He likes to dig in and really, explore that stuff. And that's one of the reasons why we get along so well is we both are inherent like tinkerers in different aspects. And so, you kind of, this is where the work is the work, but you see how people go about doing the work and you learn a lot. And this is why I think that when you're doing a consultation, some people say you need to, before you sit down with someone, have them fill out this whole form questionnaire thing, right? I prefer the brick and mortar stuff, and I will say that like my consultation experience is largely based on that. But I would have people come in, and we would do a little questionnaire. We'd have a little exposition, like, "Hey, how's it going? Where are you from?" Kind of find some commonality, and like, "All right, cool. The first thing we're gonna do is this questionnaire." Turn around, give them this questionnaire. It's 2 pages. It's called a My Zone. It's something that we use still. Um, and you start to watch these people circle some numbers. And it's a 0 to 3 scale. 0 meaning you never feel this thing. 3 meaning you feel it all the time. Ones and twos are in the middle. But we look at like blood sugar symptoms. We look at cortisol symptoms, digestion, hormone stuff. And it's just a quick shotgun blast to see what we want to talk about. We want to spend time. But you'll see people that'll circle, like they'll circle a couple in the top left corner of the page and they'll go down to the bottom right corner. And then they're just like all over the place. And so you start to understand like, all right, this person's probably going to be a little more non-linear in their thinking. They're going to be all over the place. I need to let them talk themselves into the solution versus people that are like 1 to 3. They don't even ask you any questions. They're super like they know themselves pretty well versus the people that'll go in order, but they'll ask you questions and to clarify certain things, or the people that will make comments of like, oh yeah, that's me. Let me tell you the story one time. So you start to break out like what kind of communication style people have. And that's not inherently something that you'll get from the assessment and the results, but it's more of a psychological thing of like, what kind of person am I dealing with? And when you start to feel that out and you do enough of these assessments, you start to bucketize people. And it allows you when you're going into these sales consultations to have, a better way to kind of navigate it versus like this open landscape where you can go in so many different directions. Where do you want to go? And, I guess the story about that, and I'll end here, but like I was looking for a truck at one point and I went to a Ford dealership and there's this guy and he's a little chatty, right? As your typical salesman. And I'm like, all right, I'm kind of not really in the mood because I've been to like 3 different dealerships today, and you know how it goes. They give you the runaround. They say, let's sit down, give me your keys. We're going to appraise your vehicle. And then they don't give you the fucking keys back for like 4 hours. They try to hold you hostage. And so the guy's asking me just random small talk questions. He's not really asking me the traditional small talk, though. He's asking me more like weird shit that definitely stood out. And he asked me, he's like, oh, when's your birthday? And I was like, in August. And he's like, oh, so you're a Leo. And I'm like, I mean, I guess I don't really ascribe to that thing. Unless you're a single attractive woman, in which case, then yeah, I'll play that game. Toxic. What's your co-star? No, I'm kidding. But he would sit there and he was like, well, and I was like, whatever. Like, he then turns around and proceeds to tell me, he's like, well, I like to ask that stuff because I get an idea of what kind of personality we're dealing with. He's like, you tend to be very direct. You tend to like to, have certain elements of whatever it is that you're looking for. And he kind of nails it down. And I'd say probably within like a 30 to 40% certainty, meaning he was 60 to 70% incorrect in some of the things. But he came in 30% more certain than 100% more, right? Or then 0% more certain. So every little thing that you're getting is just helping you piece together what this person's dealing with, what they really think is important. And by the way, their goals will change like 4 to 8 weeks in anyway. So usually they just don't trust you enough to tell you what's important up front. So you're just trying to build that relationship. And the more you do that up front, usually the easier and the more they're going to trust you and the more open to your suggestions they'll be on the back end.
Quick aside to your quick aside is we're talking this morning. We have all these people joining the community, and 60% of them are saying, hey, I want sales, marketing, front end kind of purchasing help. That's my
Mm-hmm.
biggest obstacle constraint to my business right now. Then there's a just shy of 30% of
Yeah.
people coming in saying, hey, I want to be a better coach and deliver a better service for insert various reasons.
Mm-hmm.
Here's the crazy thing. Again, with the exception of you're just starting your business and you're trying to get your first 5 clients, if you retained your people longer, you would need to gain less people on the front end in terms of sales and marketing.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where Andrew and I very much are. Let's teach you to be amazing coaches, and let's go from like a 10 and 15 and 20% ascension and referral rate to more like 70% of your people buy again and 50% of that 70% refer somebody
Mm-hmm.
to you. How much easier would your sales and marketing efforts be? Like, just think about that. Or how much further would the same amount of effort then go, because you're not trying to make up for your clients you're losing, you're instead building and growing your business. So
Yeah.
just from that perspective. But if we came and we led with, you don't have a sales and marketing problem, you have a retention problem, to everybody that believes they have a sales and marketing problem,
Ooh.
no one's going to listen to the thing. And that's the big component here. You
Mm-hmm.
believe you have a certain problem in your business. If I stand here and say, no, you have this
Mm-hmm.
problem, less than 50% of the time are you going to be willing to say, oh, yeah, you're right, Steve. Let me learn about this. Because you already believe deep seated that you have a certain problem. And that's where that kind of balance of giving somebody what they want versus what they need really comes into play. So,
Mm-hmm.
but anyways, you're having this
Yeah.
conversation, you're talking to this person, you're in the DMs, you're emailing, whatever it might be. We're hoping that we understand what is the micro problem at hand, what is the thing they're truly trying to solve, which leads to a certain macro problem, which leads to whatever the actual outcome is that they want. I don't like the taste of water. If they start drinking more water, that'd be great. And then eventually drinking more water leads to them losing weight, right? There's that flow. There's literally people like, I don't like the taste of water. I'm like, I don't like the water tastes like water. How do you not like, I don't, it's a whole nother thing, right? Just something else to discuss. But so you think through that for a second. It's like, all right, hey, would love to sit down and talk about solving this problem further. Your number one intent on a sales call should be,
Mhm.
no matter what, if this person says, hey, no, I'm not interested, they should still walk away with something that can help them make their life better. They invested time, which is valuable, to spend time with you. Don't be that person, that sales guy, that sales girl who's on the other side going, oh, yeah, well, I'll give you the secrets if you sign up. No, you're going to deliver value to them, right? Same reason you're going to give me your email address is because I'm giving you value for the email address. It's not that I'm giving you value only when you spend money, I'm giving you value before that. The reason being is if they feel the value, they feel heard, they start to trust you, they know you, they like you, you've been able to exchange some stories and experiences, and they start to believe that you truly understand them, you now have the chance to present an offer to them. Again, this isn't, I do this twice a week for this long via this way. It's rather, here's how my unique program goes about solving your problem, and here's all of the bonuses that I stack in to ensure your success. You're allowed to do that because you now built that underlying relationship that's needed off of the heels of value being
Mhm.
given. So let's say, oh, yeah, you know what? One of my easiest hacks to drinking water, if you don't like the taste of water, is actually using these little drops called Mio. My favorite is there's a lemonade one and an iced tea one. I do a little bit of both and I get to drink lemonade iced teas all day. And the reality is it's water. Like, cool. And maybe they talked to you about loving Arnold Palmer's before that. And now all of a sudden, like, man, you heard them, you saw them, you solved their problem, and they start drinking more water, which is the thing they need to do. But they came to you saying, yeah, I just really don't like the taste of water. You solve that thing. And now, hey, you're going to drink 48 million gallons. It's going to be amazing and all the things. And because you're so full of water, you're not going to eat as much as you were and you're going to lose weight naturally. Cool. Problem solved. Right. And now we lead to them losing weight. So, how do you set it up that you can give them some value? How do you get them in a conversation so you can actually have that like true exchange of value with them? And that's kind of that area where you need to go down and just, hey, Andrew, what do you think is like the biggest thing that you're looking to solve, and what's getting in your way there? Obviously, the first message shouldn't be that, but once they start to understand the problem, the solution that exists, and how you can help them and that you care about them, it's easy to ask those questions, understand, like, hey, would love to hop on a call and explain this a little bit more. I actually put together a guide on this a few months ago. Going to go ahead and shoot that over to you too, so that way you have something to refer back to. It's a good reason for them to go ahead and hop on that call and have that conversation. Once you solve that problem with and for them, now it's, listen, I'd love to actually join you on this journey. If I'm able to solve this thing, I'm clearly able to solve more things, should be the thing going on in your brain. Same token, if you're like, man, I have no idea how to help you, appropriately you should probably let them know that. But go down that road of give value. And on the other side, I'd love to continue to helping you with this. Here's typically what something might look like, and go down that offer path. And oh, by the way, I like to give you this thing and this thing and this thing as kind of extras, because that's what really helps push people from just successful to like overwhelming success.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that's the big thing. Make sure you have that high level of confidence, and make sure you connect on the micro problem, which leads to the macro problem, which leads to the ultimate problem that we're truly facing. And then you're going to have a higher level of success. You're also going to have a higher level of kind of confidence going into that conversation. So,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's, you think about the problem awareness and tying that back in. When you're talking to these people, you're just constantly collecting the
yep.
problems they're dealing with in the back of your head. And again, kind of mentioning the other paradigm of like littering or seeding, what you're doing is effectively, what do you want to throw out there, so that way people have time to digest it and process it a little bit in the back of their head before you bring it up, because that's kind of how you create that fertile ground to make people more receptive. Is you can't be like, oh, you have this problem, let me solve this problem, which you find is a very rookie mistake in sales or influencing or getting people to change their behaviors in general. Is you're like, wow, you have this problem, before they even list the entire big picture, and you start trying to solve that thing before you collect the rest of the information that might completely change what you want to focus on first. I had a guy that I worked for. His name was Mike, and he was teaching sales consultations, and he did pretty good with sales in general. And basically, the way that he kind of explained it to the newer trainers was that you're basically like a sniper. You only get one shot to make an offer in a sales consult. So you're just constantly collecting more information, and you're loading up the rounds. And then basically you're looking for that one opportunity. What's the most impactful thing you can say and share that would cause someone to want to come back and continue to engage in a service offering? And so rather than, again, like coming out, and this is why the exploration of like, hey, tell me your history, like that's so important for you to finish before you start jumping into start solving stuff. Otherwise, you might be solving the wrong problem. And that's where you just need to be patient with it. And in fact, if you need to schedule a second touch, I found that that was a very important thing for me to build the relationship mostly in the first one, and then figure out like, all right, well, how do we demonstrate that we can solve a problem if you have time to do that particular method? Some people do 3, some people do email nurtures. Like there's so many different things that you can do to create that fertile ground. But at the end of the day, that's really what you're doing, is you're just, how do you kind of soften somebody up to make them receptive to what you're going to suggest?
Well, gang, hopefully you got something out of that. Again, break those problems down, write down that problem awareness continuum, start to think about the conversations, the pieces that come up through there, understand the difference between your micro problems, your macro problems, and the true thing that they actually need. And really just understand and have yourself armed with those components. This isn't the end all and be all of sales. There's a lot of components to this where we want to think about pre-objection handling, objection handling, the offer structure, like all of those things. That's not what this is about today. It's about, hey, I'm in a conversation
Yeah.
with you, and I want to bridge the gap and get you into the spot where I can actually truly have a full, continuous face-to-face live conversation, again, via the internet, virtually, in person, whatever, and get to that spot where I can give you the offer and try to truly help you with whatever it is you're struggling with. So, all of that to say, if you have any questions, you know where to write the questions. Reach out on social media. We're here. This is actually one that came up because somebody was like, hey, I have a lot of issues where I'm DMing people, but it always falls apart when I try to get them to schedule some type of consultation. The reason is we're just not creating a unique enough and differentiating connection. And you have to get in there. Otherwise, there's no motivation for that person to take you up and spend that time. Think about all the people that reach out to you, cold DMs and everything. How many do you, yeah, let me give you my time. I'd love to spend an hour of my day that I'll never get back. No, we don't want to do that. So be different than that. As always, subscribe, hit that subscribe button. Biggest way to help us. Throw some comments so that way we can go out and actually talk about the things that you need. If this video was helpful, click that little thumbs up guy, throw a like there. If you didn't like it, hey, we want the feedback. We want to get better for you as well. So go ahead and throw that our way. But until next time, gang, we hope you have a fantastic day. If you need anything else, we'll see you next time.